Commander Skrell clicked his mandibles in a mix of annoyance and anticipation. The readouts scrolled across his visor: abundant fauna, primitive, low threat potential. This backwater world the scavengers had nicknamed Earth looked promising. His crew, a mixed bunch of Krelt veterans and opportunistic younglings, buzzed with the promise of an easy reaping. "Focus," he snapped. They weren't warriors, just efficient collectors. This world required subtlety, at least at first. Their bioscanners detailed the largest concentrations of life deep within this southern continent, a landmass the natives called Australia. "Large bipedal forms," chirped his science officer, Grillix. "Rudimentary musculature, slow-moving." The image flashed. A tall, flightless bird, comical in its proportions. Skrell's mandibles twitched. "Perfect. Isolate. Acquire. This shall be our first sample." Earth was odd. Harsh sunlight baked the red earth, and the thorny brush tore at their containment suits. Skrell preferred the sterile hum of his ship, but orders were orders. The scavenger fleets were stretched thin, and this world held potential. A flicker of movement, a flash of mottled brown. Grillix activated the stasis field, a shimmering sphere of force trapping the ostrich-like creature. It thrashed, beady eyes wild with terror. Skrell noted the powerful hind limbs, the sharp beak. Interesting, but no threat to a Krelt. The extraction was simple, an automated probe taking genetic samples and metabolic readings. His crew chirped in satisfaction, just as planned. Then the shriek echoed. It wasn't the ostrich, though its squawking protest was ear-splitting. It was Grillix, alarm spiking through his comm signal. The stasis unit throbbed, containment levels dropping sharply. "Equipment malfunction," the science officer yelped. Skrell swore. One of the younglings must have jostled the controls. Before he could reprimand them, the field shimmered and collapsed. The ostrich, one leg mangled by the field's edge, lunged forward, not in retreat, but in a clumsy yet determined attack. The crew scattered. Skrell, momentarily baffled, raised his own disruptor. Just a scavenger animal, easily put down. It swerved mid-lunge, impossibly fast on its long legs. A kick landed squarely on the containment device, shattering the delicate machinery. The damaged samples and vital metabolic data vanished in a puff of ozone. He heard the youngling's panicked cries as the creature bolted out of sight, bleeding but undeniably alive. Mission parameters demanded minimal disruption of the ecosystem. Now, thanks to this absurd incident. "Alert vessel," he barked into his comms. "Priority update. Earth fauna may be more robust than initially projected." The damage report worsened his already foul mood. Krelt tech was dependable, not prone to shattering from the kick of a primitive bird. And then there was the matter of that injured creature bleeding out somewhere in this blasted wilderness. Wasteful. "Focus on recovery," he ordered. "Those samples are a priority. The creature won't survive long." The next several hours proved him wrong. Each time they closed in on the ostrich, its tracks fading into the scrub, their sensors flared unexpectedly. A mottled creature, stocky and powerful, scuttled from beneath a rock, stinger twitching menacingly. A flash of reptilian scales disappeared under the parched earth. "Unknown venom profile," Grillix yelped. "Evacuate the sector." By the time dusk painted the sky in lurid hues, they were no closer to their target. Skrell's annoyance had boiled into a simmering rage. These primitive life forms, they were persistent, almost as if they were protecting that wounded monstrosity. The comms crackled. "Commander, incoming signals. Not Krelt. Localized, primitive ground-based technology." At last, something understandable. "Identify." The feed shimmered into focus. 4 bipeds, the natives of this world, converging on the area. Their vehicles were crude, their gear simple, yet a flicker of unease snaked through Skrell. They moved with purpose, with a sense of awareness of the land that defied logic for such a low-tech species. "Observe," he instructed. This was new data how the natives interacted with their planet. The bipeds, 3 males and a female, found the tracks easily. their conversation a mix of guttural sounds and electronic chirps. They found the blood trail, the signs of the injured ostrich, and the tension amongst the Krelt crew rose subtly. Grillix translated, "They're concerned about the creature. Primitive designation, emu." Skrell hissed in annoyance. "Sentiment accomplishes nothing. Monitor their actions. Do they pose a threat?" The natives didn't. They seemed focused on tracking, not aggression. Yet, there was a disturbing efficiency to their movements, an almost uncanny ability to vanish into the brush, then re-emerge meters ahead, as if the land itself was guiding them. When darkness fell, Skrell was forced to retreat. They had the advantage of night vision, but numbers and terrain familiarity were not in his favor. Returning to the ship was a humiliating experience. He was used to the ease of cataloging, harvesting, and moving on. Earth was proving an unexpected irritant. Commander Skrell's report to the scavenger fleet was met not with understanding, but with a thinly veiled threat. "Adapt, exploit. This world has potential," his superior rasped, insect-like eyes unreadable. "Do not underestimate the value of what we've discovered." The irony was, Skrell wasn't underestimating the creatures of Earth. He was starting to suspect he didn't understand them at all. With a growl of frustration, he turned his attention back to planning. The natives' humans, the translator informed him, were the key. Whatever odd connection they had to the wildlife was their vulnerability. "Observation pods," he instructed. "Strategic deployment throughout the target region. Our presence must remain covert." Days turned into a strange stalemate. The observation pods transmitted their data diligently. The humans patrolled the area with increasing vigilance, their expressions grim beneath their wide-brimmed hats. They set out strange conical devices that chirped and stuttered, and once Skrell watched in disbelief as they meticulously treated a gash on a massive, hairy creature that resembled something out of the Ice Ages. "Symbiosis," Grillix chirped excitedly. "These human specimens display rudimentary medical capabilities targeted towards the native fauna." "Capabilities that interfere with our objectives," Skrell snarled, mandibles clicking in agitation. They shifted focus to easier targets. A pack of lean, dog-like creatures was lured with a fabricated carcass emitting the scent of fresh meat. The trap was flawless, the containment field sprung at the perfect moment. Success, finally. And then the humans arrived. They appeared out of nowhere, emerging from the tall grass like ghosts. There was no roar of engines, no heavy machinery. Yet, here they were, their weapons crude projectile throwers, their expressions filled with unsettling resolve. "Release the specimens," one of them, older and sun-worn, stated through the translator. His voice held an odd tonal quality, flat, yet oddly resonant. "Negative," Skrell responded automatically. Yet, he hesitated. Direct conflict would reveal them, jeopardize the mission. The humans simply nodded. Then, they turned and began doing the strangest thing. They howled, long, keening cries that echoed across the desolate landscape. Minutes later, the ground thrummed with answering calls. The captured pack, once agitated, grew still and alert, eyes fixed on some unseen threat. With a coordinated lurch, they broke free of the field, charging out not in mindless panic, but in a purposeful surge directed by those haunting human cries. "This is becoming problematic," Grillix chirped nervously, sensors spiking wildly. Skrell wasn't one for superstition. Yet, a sense of foreboding had settled over him, a creeping unease far more potent than the frustration at the repeated failures. This world wasn't just resisting conquest, it was responding. "Target human encampments," he rasped. "Indirect disruptions only. If we can disrupt their operations, isolate them." The strategy yielded mixed results. Brush fires, their origins difficult to trace, sent human teams scrambling, and contaminated water sources kept them off balance. The human, however, adapted at a rate that defied logic. Camouflaged outposts sprung up overnight, and their strange chirping devices created a confusing web of signals, making wildlife tracking unpredictable. It was as if the humans, lacking in advanced tech, became an extension of the wild itself, their tactics shifting seamlessly with the unpredictable rhythm of the Australian bush. Each disrupted hunt, each close call, forced the Krelt to change their approach, making them the ones who felt hunted. Then, the unthinkable happened. A group of younglings, emboldened by a string of near misses, had grown frustrated. They acted without orders, targeting not wildlife, but a human directly. Grillix's frantic call ripped through the ship's comm system. His voice choked. Krelt's squad engaged, heavy casualties. Skrell didn't hesitate. He wasn't a rescuer, but the loss of personnel and the inevitable backlash from the humans were unacceptable. He sprinted through the dry brush towards the signal's origin, weapon charged. The stench of smoke and ozone hung thick in the air. He found the younglings, first two of them splayed on the ground, containment suits breached and leaking fluids, the third whimpering in a patch of poison ivy. The human was a blur of motion, disappearing into the thickets before Skrell could get a clear shot. "Extract the injured," he snapped, then turned his focus to the surrounding chaos. Evidence was clear: crude traps of woven fibers and sharp branches, tracks expertly obscured. This wasn't a panicked animal defending itself. This was planned, tactical. A flicker of light on his visor drew his attention, an alert signal from one of the observation pods. Skrell accessed the feed, and his mandibles snapped in shock. The human, the oldest of the group, face creased with wear, stared directly into the pod's lens. There was no fear on his face, no surprise, just a grim determination as he raised a crude device and keyed in a complex sequence of beeps. The observation pod's self-destruct sequence initiated immediately. Humans shouldn't understand their technology, shouldn't predict their countermeasures. And yet, "Withdraw," Skrell barked before they lost even more. Immediate withdrawal to the extraction point. The extraction was humiliating, conducted under the harsh, mocking light of an alien sun. As the ship ascended, Skrell stood before the vast viewport, his gaze fixed on the swirling clouds below. He had sent detailed reports back to the fleet. The unanticipated resilience of the wildlife, the unexpectedly cunning native population, and most importantly, the sense of something more here on Earth, an almost sentience in the land itself. His superiors scoffed at this notion, their comm signals buzzing with disdain. "Excuses cloak your failures, Commander. A primitive species won't halt the Krelt harvest." Skrell clicked his mandibles, but the unease lingered. His crew shifted nervously, the usual buzz of anticipation for the next world replaced by a thick, uneasy silence. And then there was that blasted emu. The reports detailed its return, the wounds crudely treated with strips of plant fiber, still moving with its unnatural speed, always present at the edge of their operations. Had it guided the humans, become a symbol of this world's relentless defiance? "Grillix," he addressed the science officer, forcing authority into his voice. "Run a probability matrix. Not on the creatures, not on the human tactics. On the biosphere itself. Are we witnessing an anomaly, or do other worlds respond in this way?" The answer, days later, was a chilling collection of data. Worlds the Krelt had deemed ripe for scavenging, lush, abundant with life. Worlds with a history of unexplained mission failures, of disappearances explained away as simple bad luck, carelessness. Worlds where the natives possessed a preternatural connection to their terrain, an almost instinctual resilience. "Perhaps," Grillix chirped hesitantly, his usual eagerness replaced by caution, "some forms of life evolve not just sentience, but a connection deep enough to render the planet itself responsive." Skrell swiveled his head to glare at the science officer. "And Earth is one such world. The data suggest a growing probability, which changes everything. Earth wasn't just a source of resources, it was a potential adversary, one that exceeded their understanding of conquest and categorization." Skrell's initial annoyance curdled into a deep-seated dread. They had stumbled onto something beyond their usual methods. He stared back down at Earth. If he notified the scavenger fleet, they'd descend upon the planet in force. But force might not be the answer here. only leading to a conflict the Krelt could not win, or worse, a devastation that benefited them little. Decision thrummed in him, a sense of purpose not born from ambition, but raw survival instinct. "Prepare new orders for the crew," he finally said, the decision echoing in the ship's sterile silence. Mission classification, immediate covert withdrawal. Data purge protocols to be initiated when clear of Earth's orbit. Grillix blinked in surprise. To falsify their findings was a dangerous gamble. "This world," Skrell rasped, "is not for us to harvest. Leave them be, and perhaps they will leave us the same courtesy." The humans were the first to notice the change. It wasn't a grand departure or a celebratory signal fire. It was a subtle shift in the air, a stillness descending upon the bush where there should have been the hum and crackle of alien technology. Sarah, the team's zoologist, keyed her comms. "The M readings are dropping. Whatever tech they were using, it's powering down." Their leader, Jack, worn features set in a grim line, lowered his binoculars. "Cautious optimism, people. Stay sharp, but let's assess." The signs were everywhere: abandoned traps, hastily obscured excavation sites, the lingering scent of ozone fading with each passing wind. The aliens, the ones they begun to refer to half-jokingly as the kleptos, were retreating. "Why, Mark," the team's tracker, and a proud Bundjalung man, muttered. They were dug in deep. Sarah tapped her comm unit thoughtfully, analyzing data. "Could be our countermeasures worked. The disrupted hunts, the contaminated water." "Or," Jack interrupted, a flicker of unease in his eyes, "they found something they didn't expect." Days crept by in watchful silence. The ostrich, now sporting a mismatched patchwork of feathers where its wounds had been, reappeared alongside its flock, a startling sight against the red earth. Kangaroos, unharried, grazed peacefully. No crackling energy fields appeared. No strange pods materialized out of thin air. Then came the dreams. Sarah usually dismissed dreams as the subconscious sorting through the debris of the waking world. But these were different. Vivid, relentless, visceral flashes of scaled insects, of clicking voices, and a sterile emptiness that sent a chill down her spine. When she confided in Jack, he didn't laugh or dismiss her. He simply nodded, understanding in his lined face. "Something shifted out there," he rasped. "And maybe it shifted something in us, too." The others came forward, one by one. Not just dreams, but a lingering unease, a heightened awareness of the world around them. The bush felt different, more watchful, the calls of birds sharper, the patterns of the wind carrying a faint echo of alien speech. Sarah, the scientist, the skeptic, found herself setting aside her field computer more often. She'd sit beneath the immense starlit sky, the smell of eucalyptus sharp in her nostrils, and listen. Not for the klepto signal, but for the rustle of leaves, the distant howl of a dingo, and the quiet, unspoken question hanging in the air. Were they guardians now, instead of mere inhabitants? When the signal came, it wasn't a crackle on the comms. It was a ripple across the surface of a remote watering hole, a shimmer in the moonlight casting an intricate, circular pattern. Jack deciphered it first, his knowledge of ancient aboriginal art sparking to life. "Message marker," he breathed. "A universal sign, something meant to be understood." It took days of analysis, comparing the pattern to known astronomical data, code-breaking techniques Sarah had never considered applying to the vibrations of water. But finally, they had a translation, rough and incomplete, but chillingly clear. "Danger, shared world, do not return." The message sparked a debate that echoed through their makeshift camp and into the vast silence of the outback. Some argued for immediate, full disclosure to warn their governments, to prepare for a potential future invasion. Others, scarred by the quiet conflict with the kleptos, feared the consequences of revealing Earth's newfound uniqueness to a galaxy hungry for resources. "Secrecy won't last," Mark, the tracker, spat out one evening by the firelight. "There'll be changes, anomalies the suits in Canberra won't be able to ignore. Better to get ahead of it." Sarah, her usually calm demeanor laced with tension, countered. "And what if they don't believe us? What if they send not scientists, but soldiers, exploiters? Jack sighed, rubbing at his temples. He was their leader, but this went beyond tracking poachers or relocating problem crocs. This was about the fate of the entire planet. We buy ourselves time, he decided. Selective disclosure. We reach out to those who might understand. Scientists on the fringe, those studying anomalies, not power players itching for a fight. The team split, their skills tested in new ways. Sarah sought out sympathetic academics, slipping fragments of hypothetical data into conferences and obscure journals, hoping to pique the right kind of curiosity. Mark leveraged his indigenous connections, whispered warnings to elders across the continent, revitalizing ancient knowledge of stewardship that transcended modern borders. Even the animals seemed complicit. The ostrich, now an emblem of their strange struggle, strutted unafraid near research labs, its gaze impossibly knowing. A wedge-tailed eagle circled high, its shadow tracing cryptic patterns across freshly seeded fields that, strangely, failed to attract the usual flocks of hungry cockatoos. Change descended upon them subtly, seeping into their operations. Their makeshift base expanded into a well-camouflaged network, supplies stockpiled, and a sense of urgency fueled their every move. They became protectors, not just of the wildlife, but of an intricate balance they barely grasped. News trickled in, strange readings from satellites dismissed as glitches, inexplicable wildlife behavior defying conventional explanation, a growing murmur of unease from the scientific fringe. Word of the kleptos, and their cryptic message, never reached the ears of those who wielded power. One moonless night, Sarah sat hunched over sensor readouts, a feeling of anticipation prickling her skin. "They're back," she murmured, the words echoing in the hush of the camp. Not the kleptos, but something else. A faint shimmer of energy, a pattern distinct from any known tech. Yet it held a strange echo of the message signal, a ripple in space-time more than a blaring klaxon. "Explorers?" Mark whispered, his knuckles white against his rifle. "Or curious academics lured by incomplete data," Jack countered, hope shimmering in his tired eyes. "Either way, it's time for the next stage." They'd prepared for this. A response signal, painstakingly crafted, not a plea for help, but a statement of intent. Earth is sentient. Earth is aware. Earth will not be harvested. The visitors arrived not in massive warships, but a single, sleek vessel that shimmered like an oil slick beneath the dazzling Australian sun. The landing was silent, calculated, conducted a respectful distance from their primary base. When the hatch opened, they were not greeted by the insectoid forms of the Krelt, but by an array of beings that shattered every preconception they held about alien life. There were creatures tall and willowy, covered in shimmering scales that shifted in the light. Others were built low to the ground, with multiple eyes and a disconcertingly fluid way of moving. One creature seemed woven from light and shadow, its form flickering at the edge of perception. And at their lead stood a figure vaguely humanoid, yet composed of a crystalline structure that pulsed with an inner luminescence. "Greetings," the crystal being's voice echoed, not through speakers, but seeming to hum through the very air around them. "We are the Entia. We received your transmission and the warning." Sarah, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs, stepped forward. She glanced at Jack, saw the mixture of awe and trepidation mirrored on his face. She had thought herself prepared, spent years imagining first contact, but this was beyond anything she'd ever conceived. "We are the caretakers of this world," she said, surprised at the steadiness of her own voice. "Earth is different," and it responded to the invasive presence. Mark, ever the pragmatist, stepped up beside her. "We fought to protect it. Now we're prepared to fight again, if we have to." The crystal being tilted its head, the fractured light within it shifting in patterns Sarah couldn't decipher. "Understand," it pulsed. "The Entia are not harvesters nor conquerors. We are observers, seekers of knowledge." A ripple went through the assembled aliens, a sense of surprise mirroring Sarah's own shock. One of the scale-covered beings stepped forward, its voice a series of musical clicks and trills. a translation device, one painstakingly programmed with hundreds of hypothetical linguistic patterns, hummed to life. We apologize. Our scouts, they acted rashly, with limited understanding, the scaled being chirped. This changes many perceptions. Changes everything, the crystal being interjected. A sentient world, one capable of evolving defenses. This has vast implications. The implications hung heavy in the air. If Earth was unique, was it a beacon in the darkness, or the start of a galactic struggle they were woefully unprepared for? We offer collaboration, the lead alien pulsed. Knowledge shared, a chance to understand this together. Jack stepped forward then, weathered boots crunching on the hard earth. And if we refuse? The crystalline form shifted, a gesture unnervingly like a shrug. Then we go our separate ways. But know this, others will come. Those who see not a marvel, but a resource. The warning your world transmitted, it will be heard, eventually. The choice fell on them, the unlikely protectors of a world that had evolved its own defense mechanism. Sarah glanced at the land around them, the red dust, the swaying mulga trees, the piercingly blue sky. It was harsh, beautiful, and undeniably alive in a way that still made her shiver. Jack, she started, maybe, we don't have to do this alone. The negotiation, if one could call it that, took place under the shade of a towering ghost gum tree. Humans and the Entia sat not at a table, but on the ground in a rough circle, an acknowledgement of the earth itself as participant in these talks. The Entia, they learned, were an ancient collective of diverse species bound by a shared reverence for knowledge and the delicate balance of the universe. They explored, collected data, and, most importantly, they shared their findings with those worlds deemed ready for the responsibility. We are, in a sense, the gardeners, the crystal being pulsed, its luminescence casting intricate patterns on the leaves above. Nurturing, guiding when possible, but never interfering through conquest. The pieces clicked into place for Sarah, a revelation as startling as the sentience of Earth itself. That's what the Krelt found traces of your work, hints of these sentient worlds, and misjudged it as resources to be plundered. The scaled being chirped in confirmation, its iridescent scales flashing in agitation. They are a plague, not uncommon, sadly. Greed, dressed in the illusion of efficiency, spreads easily amongst the younger races. Mark scoffed. And do you expect us, fledglings ourselves, to stand against such a force? The crystal being tilted its head, sending fractured rainbows dancing on the ground. You have already begun. Earth, in defending itself, has revealed a strength, a potential the Krelt never anticipated. Yours is a warrior spirit born from a connection to your world, not in spite of it. That is rare, worth guarding. Jack rubbed a hand across his face, the lines of exhaustion seeming to deepen. And what do you offer? Knowledge? Pretty words. The lead Entia pulsed softly. A chance to prepare. Understanding of the wider galaxy, of its dangers, yes, but also its wonders. Alliances exist, worlds that hold ideals like your own. You are not alone, you just didn't know where to look. The choice hung heavy. Trusting these enigmatic aliens felt like a gamble, but the alternative, isolation and ignorance, loomed as a greater threat. We have knowledge, too, Sarah finally said, her voice surprisingly strong. Of Earth, her land, her creatures. We learned to use it against invaders. Perhaps it's time we learned to use it alongside allies. One by one, her team nodded, determination in their eyes. They were conservationists, not soldiers, but the universe, it seemed, demanded they become both. The crystal being extended a crystalline appendage, the gesture unnerving yet sincere. Then the Entia offer a pact. Knowledge for knowledge, preparation for what is to come. You have shown bravery, Earth. Let us help you show the galaxy wisdom as well. The transformation of their base was as organic as it was unsettling. Alongside their camo netting and solar panels, shimmering crystal tech emerged. Ancient devices that hummed with an energy unlike anything they had witnessed before. The exchange of knowledge started hesitantly, then surged forward in a torrent neither side could have anticipated. Sarah, the zoologist, found herself deciphering ancient texts on the evolution of hive-mind symbiosis within insectoid species, the information eerily relevant in light of the vanished Krelt. Mark, the tracker, studied maps of star systems overlaid with hyperspace trade routes, learning to plot courses not by foot through the bush, but through the swirling chasms of the cosmos. The Entia, in turn, marveled at the complexity of Earth's biosphere. The ostrich, that symbol of their defiance, became a specimen of intense study, its regenerative abilities hinting at the dormant potential hidden within the planet's life forms. The crystalline being spent long hours by the campfire, its fractured light flickering, as Jack shared stories of Aboriginal Dreamtime myths, the interwoven concepts of country and custodianship resonating deeply with the aliens' philosophy. The changes were not just technological. Something within them shifted, the connection to the land Sarah had felt amplified, echoing the Entia's own reverence for the pulse of living worlds. Mark's tracking skills evolved, now encompassing not just animal trails on parched soil, but the subtle disturbances in the fabric of the air, the faint ripples left by Krelt scout ships retreating from the world's borders. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon painting the land in fiery hues, the crystal being addressed them, its usual pulse of communication thrumming with an even greater intensity. "We sense a disturbance," it projected, the translation device struggling to convey the alien's sense of unease. Not Krelt, something heavier, warping the usual pathways. Fear, cold and sudden, surged through Sarah. The respite had been temporary, a naive lull in the gathering storm they always knew loomed. "How much time?" Jack asked, his voice devoid of its usual warmth. "Imminent arrival is unlikely," the crystal being pulsed. "But the ripple effect, the awareness of a powerful presence, it means they know of you. They are coming, eventually." The campfire crackled, the shadows dancing long and grotesque in the wake of the aliens' words. They had built a sanctuary, a place of knowledge and desperate hope, and now the relentless vastness of the galaxy threatened to shatter it. But Sarah felt something else amidst the fear, a defiant strength rising through her, echoing from the land beneath her feet. They were not the same team who had first stumbled upon the alien threat. They were bound now to the planet, to the Entia allies, to a purpose larger than any of them could have imagined. "Let them come," she said, the setting sun painting her face in defiant crimson. "We will be ready." Readiness, they learned, was not about building warships or amassing energy weapons. It was a dance between ancient knowledge and alien science, a blending of Earth-born resilience and the hard-earned wisdom of the Entia. Sarah found herself directing Entia scientists with weathered hands, dissecting not just native flora, but the samples provided by their new allies' plants that pulsed with contained energy, fungi that reacted violently to certain frequencies. Under her guidance, the bush itself became a network of sensors, a living, breathing early warning system. Mark's tracking abilities evolved. His touch on the parched ground could now discern the lingering imprint of teleportation tech, the echo of shielded engines reverberating through the bedrock itself. Alongside the Entia, he plotted safe zones across the country, hidden valleys and deep chasms where the land would twist and distort any outsider's perceptions. Jack, the grizzled leader, became a strategist burdened with unimaginable choices. He learned not only the Entia's art of war, but the chilling data on Krelt history, their tactics, their weaknesses, the sliver of hope to be found in the crumbling alliances the scavengers had left in their careless wake across the galaxy. The Entia were not saviors. Their presence brought danger closer, the knowledge they bore, a double-edged sword. But they also brought the time and the tools Earth desperately needed. Sleep became a luxury, every sunrise a potential prelude to battle. The animals they had protected now became unwitting allies, dingoes relaying coded barks, a flock of gallas rising in a pattern that spoke of approaching starships, the ostrich pack running diversionary sprints that would distort alien long-range scans. And always, there was the hum of the crystals, the growing lattice of ancient tech embedded within the land itself. Sarah dreamt in fractured light, of power surging not from machines, but from the red earth and the ancient roots beneath it. The weight was excruciating. Years stretched into an uneasy stalemate. Reports trickled in, Krelt movements on distant trade routes, hushed rumors from other Entia contacts of whispers about a protected world newly discovered. Then, one crisp autumn morning, their cobbled-together sensor array flared to life. 5 Krelt vessels, Mark rasped, his eyes locked on the readouts. Heavily armed, and, he hesitated, a flash of disbelief crossing his face. Something else. Larger. Unknown configuration. Jack's hand clenched into a fist. "The Vanguard," he muttered. "They're not testing the waters anymore." The crystal being stepped forward, its internal light blazing brighter. "This is what we have prepared for," it pulsed. "Earth must not fall." The Krelt descended not with blaring alarms and overwhelming firepower, but with insidious cunning. Their initial force split, landing in remote locations under the cover of meticulously generated weather disruptions. Their goal was clear: avoid open conflict, establish hidden outposts, and secure a foothold before Earth's protectors could mobilize. The humans, however, were one step ahead. Mark, his connection to the land amplified, sensed the Krelt's distorted footprints the moment they breached the atmosphere. Their initial landing zones weren't sites of tactical value, but places of spiritual resonance, a hidden cave system adorned with ancient paintings, a remote billabong shrouded in ancestral legend. The Krelt, in their cold calculations, had gravely underestimated their enemy. Sarah's team was already moving, their vehicles blending seamlessly into the deceptive terrain. The Entia had gifted them with tech that masked their heat signatures and disrupted scans, making them ghosts in their own world. It was the Krelt now who were the targets, their overconfidence a fatal weakness. The first battle was fought not with lasers, but with a precision no machine could predict. A sudden dust storm, the ground itself seeming to swirl in their favor, trapped a Krelt scouting party. The air thrummed with the disconcerting hum of disturbed wasps harmless to humans, their venom a potent neurotoxin with devastating effects on Krelt physiology. The ambush was brutal, efficient, and over in a matter of hours. The survivors were not killed, but captured, bound with vines infused with Entia-designed sedatives. They were evidence, a message sent back with those the Krelt deemed broken and defeated. You are outmatched. The second attack targeted the larger, unknown vessel. It loomed in the upper atmosphere, arrogance made manifest in the harsh glare of its lights. Yet, Sarah knew its power shields could not protect it from something the Entia understood deeply: the harmonics of the planet. The crystals they had meticulously placed hummed with a rhythmic resonance, a discordant symphony designed to overload the alien ship's delicate systems. The effect was spectacularly terrifying. One moment, the ship hung menacingly, the next it flickered, plunged into an uncontrolled spin, then vanished in a blinding flash. Not destroyed, but disoriented, ejected violently out of Earth's orbit. A warning, not a massacre. Jack watched the chaos from a remote mountaintop, the crystal being beside him. A show of strength, he explained, but also restraint. Let them fear us, but not enough to bring their entire fleet down upon our heads. The crystal pulsed in agreement. We win this fight not through annihilation, but wisdom. Every measured victory changes the perception. It was Mark who noticed the change first. The ostrich, near constant presence, was missing. His calls went unanswered. At first, there was alarm, then the dawning awareness of something miraculous. The lonesome cries echoed across the land, not in distress, but determination. The flock was gone, and in their absence, fresh tracks large, powerful, leading towards the last reported Krelt sighting. The image sent a shiver through the Entia collective. It was a crude battlefield recording, relayed through their network the ostriches, moving in an uncanny, coordinated attack, a phalanx of feathered fury against the bewildered Krelt force. The creatures, always swift, were unnaturally fast, their long legs blurring, their powerful kicks honed into tools of war. The Krelt containment fields flickered, strained to their limits. Yet it was not their raw strength that proved decisive, but a disturbing intelligence. One ostrich feigned injury, drawing a young Krelt into a marshy bog. Another, feathers spattered with the sap of a plant known to cause hallucinations in the scavenger species, lured two more into a dense thicket. Disoriented, their communications disrupted by the carefully placed crystal nodes, the Krelt were isolated, then systematically overwhelmed. They have evolved, the lead Entia pulsed, awe and a hint of fear lacing its usual calm projection. The connection to Earth, it accelerates them. Sarah felt a surge not of pride, but profound disquiet. They had sought to protect, to nurture, but in the face of war, had they become architects of a new breed of predator? It was a question for later, when the immediate threat subsided. Right now, they had an advantage to press. The captured Krelt were not interrogated, not in the traditional sense. Instead, they were subjected to the land itself. Held in camouflaged outposts, they were exposed to the disorienting songs of the lyrebird, the sudden drop in temperature that heralded a dust storm, the ground itself vibrating with the footsteps of unseen, but undeniably large predators. They broke, their arrogance crumbling. The Krelt were scavengers, opportunists, not warriors hardened to unyielding resistance. They spoke of a vast fleet, of resources stretched thin, of Earth reclassified from easy target to a threat exceeding their initial assessment. And then came Mark's message, laced with grim satisfaction. Ostrich flock returning. One altered. The creature that emerged from the brush was different. Larger, feathers iridescent with an unsettling sheen, a network of healed scars marking its powerful body. Yet its eyes, once filled with animal alertness, held something new, a sharp, cold focus that sent a chill down Sarah's spine. The crystal being approached it, slowly, cautiously. An exchange pulsed through the air, unseen yet visceral. Then the being turned back towards the humans, a wave of complex emotions emanating from it: respect, wariness, and a chilling certainty. A guardian, it finally pulsed. Earth, she has chosen. The Krelt retreated, not in a rout, but with a speed that hinted at calculated damage control rather than outright defeat. Theirs was a logic born from profit margins and logistics, and Earth, it seemed, no longer fit the bill. Victory celebrations were muted, replaced by a bone-deep weariness and a lingering unease. The war had changed them, the Earth itself. The ostrich that now stalked amidst their camp was a constant reminder: protection, when pushed to the extreme, twisted into something unpredictable. Jack called a meeting, the fire casting long shadows against the ancient rock formations surrounding their base. Sarah, Mark, and the others sat in an exhausted circle, the taste of triumph tinged with something far more bitter. "The Krelt will be back," Jack began, his voice hoarse. "Maybe not today, maybe not in our lifetime, but they'll be back, or others like them will." "The Entia," Sarah said softly, "they can't stay here forever. One day, we'll be facing this alone." The land around them pulsed in silent acknowledgement, the crystals the Entia had left behind humming in gentle resonance. Tools remained, but the teachers would inevitably depart. Mark, his weathered face etched with an unfamiliar vulnerability, spoke in a low voice. "We learned from them, changed. But is this who we want to become? Soldiers manipulating the land, turning animals into weapons?" The questions hung unanswered in the night air. Had they won the battle only to lose the essence of what they fought to protect? The lead Entia approached the circle, its inner light casting dancing patterns on their worn faces. "Change is necessary," it pulsed, "but choice remains. The path a world takes, that is its own to forge." Sarah stood, the firelight flickering in her eyes. "We became warriors out of necessity, but we were protectors first. We can be both, maybe, but we need to find a different balance." The foundation the Entia had gifted them with remained: the knowledge, the tech, the expanded understanding of their planet's potential. But knowledge alone did not guarantee wisdom. Theirs was a unique struggle, born from a living world with its own nascent will. Jack glanced at the ostrich, its powerful form silhouetted against the stars. Not a pet, not a mere animal, but a symbol of the blurred lines they now existed within. "We keep learning," he declared, determination hardening his voice. Not just how to fight, but how to truly live alongside Earth's power without being consumed by it. The years that followed were a time of relentless adaptation, of building upon the lessons of war and seeking a path that honored the ancient wisdom of the land itself. The humans evolved into something new, guided by the Entia, who lingered longer than initially promised, their quiet respect for Earth's unique path evident. Sarah's focus shifted. Less zoologist, more symbologist. She learned to decipher the language of the land, not just the calls of animals, but the subtle shift of wind, the scent of minerals carried from deep within the earth. With Entia tech, she could map the planet's pulse, the thrum of its sentience in patterns once invisible. Mark evolved from tracker to sentinel. His connection to country deepened, the ability to sense disruptions, anomalies, extending globally. The Krelt were constantly probing covert expeditions, disguised probes, but they were never met with overwhelming force, rather a series of orchestrated frustrations. A failed landing masked by a sudden geological shift, a vital data stream corrupted by the orchestrated symphony of insects. The ostriches became legends whispered among the Entia contacts, the Earth Guardians, their ferocity tempered by a disciplined Mark and his select few instilled. They roamed the land, appearing unexpectedly to thwart poachers, not through human guidance, but in response to the shifting needs of the ecosystem itself. Jack, the strategist, broadened his focus. The Entia had opened doors, not just to defensive tactics, but to the vast galactic community. He forged alliances, tentative at first trading Earth's unique medicinal herbs for tech from a gentle, aquatic species, exchanging knowledge of camouflage and deception with a race forever hunted by brutal conquerors. There were setbacks, misunderstandings, a clash of cultures, the chilling realization that even amongst the Entia allies, some viewed Earth with covetous eyes, seeing not a sentient world, but a resource ripe for a different kind of exploitation. The humans became diplomats as much as warriors, their honesty as potent a weapon as any crystal tech. A landmark moment came decades later. A trade convoy, fleeing from relentless pirates, sought temporary refuge within Earth's orbit. Sarah was the one who negotiated the delicate deal, sanctuary, in exchange for detailed scans of the pirates' tech, of their crude, destructive methods. The crystals hummed, the land resonated, and a new kind of weapon was born. Not planet-destroying lasers or star-consuming bombs, but targeted harmonic pulses. The fleeing convoy left armed with the ability to disrupt, to disorient, to subtly but decisively change the odds for those who preyed on the weak. It was Earth's gift, a whispered power echoing its own fierce protection. The Krelt never returned in force. Rumors spread of a world haunted, of failed expeditions plagued by the very ground they walked on. Earth remained the anomaly, the defended wild, and the humans their protectors became a whisper in the galactic winds, a word of caution, and, for some, a beacon of defiant hope. Sarah was old when the summons came. Not from Jack, her lifelong friend and leader now stooped with age, nor from Mark, whose connection to the land had woven him into the very bedrock of their world. It came from the Earth herself. A gentle pulse through the crystals, a summons echoed by the soft rustle of leaves on a windless day, the rhythmic crashing of waves on a distant shore she hadn't seen in years. She closed her eyes, focused, and felt the planet's vastness wash over her, a tapestry of sensations that transcended any language. She found herself on a familiar cliffside, red dirt beneath her bare feet, the scent of eucalyptus heavy in the air, and before her stood the ostrich, the original, the guardian. Its feathers were silvered now, scars crisscrossed its body. Yet the intelligence in its eyes was sharper than ever, blazing with a cold, focused light. A wave of unease washed over her. This was no gentle reunion, but a reckoning. "You have served me well." The voice was not a sound, but a vibration that hummed through her very bones. It was the voice of the wind, the rock, the ancient spirit that was Earth. "We have tried," Sarah stammered, suddenly humbled, feeling smaller than she had in years. "Protected." "And you have changed," the Earth voice resonated. "Become like those you fought. Clever, manipulative. A necessary shift, yet unsustainable. A vision pulsed through Sarah's mind. Humans encased in gleaming Entia-gifted armor, waging war on distant moons. The ostriches, bred for size and aggression, a snarling, feathered army. The crystals, once conduits of the planet's will, twisted into power cores for planet-shattering weapons. No, Sarah protested, the horror jolting her back to the present. That was never the path. But a possible one, the planet rumbled. The protectors can become the conquerors. It has happened elsewhere. Silence hung heavy in the air. Sarah, the scientist, the negotiator, the architect of countless defensive strategies, felt unmoored. Her victories, her achievements, were they seeds of a monstrous future? The ostrich shifted, a rustle of aged feathers. It approached Sarah, slow and deliberate. It lowered its head, not in submission, but in offering. Understanding dawned, a coldness seeping into her heart. "A new balance," Sarah whispered, her voice barely louder than a rustle of leaves. "A new guardian," the earth voice pulsed, softer now. "One in tune with the old ways, a reminder of what must never be forgotten." Sarah reached out, a touch tentative at first, then purposeful. Feathers rustled under her aged hand. The connection flared, memories shared, the taste of iron-rich soil, the thrill of the hunt, the deep thrum of the living planet and its fierce, unwavering song of self-preservation. When Sarah looked up, her own eyes blazed with a borrowed light. The handover was not a ceremony, but a gradual, inevitable shift. Sarah, once the heart of the human resistance, began a retreat from the camps, the tech, the endless strategizing. Her weathered boots trod ancient paths, guided by instinct more than maps. The crystals she carried were not Entia-designed tools, but fragments of quartz found in a dry creek bed, of rough opal given to her by Mark in an unspoken exchange. She learned to listen to the silence as much as the symphony of the land, attuned to the faintest vibrations that spoke of encroaching dangers and the growing needs of the world she loved. The ostriches, at first, followed her with suspicion, their leader mirroring their unease. But Sarah sat by watering holes for silent hours, moved as the shadows moved, and offered no threat, no manipulation. Slowly, wariness shifted into a tentative truce. Jack found her once, silhouetted against the vast emptiness of the salt pans at dusk. Age had bent his once proud frame, yet his eyes held an understanding Sarah found both comforting and devastating. "Don't worry, old friend," she rasped, her voice rough with disuse. "Your work isn't undone. I'm just remembering the oldest lesson." He nodded, a slow, accepting gesture. "Sometimes," he said, his voice thick, "the hardest fight is the one against ourselves." The years blurred. Sarah became a whisper on the hot desert winds, a legend the younger humans spoke of in hushed tones around campfires. The ostriches thrived, their intelligence tempered by a respect hard-won through shared hunts and silent nights beneath the endless stars. Mark visited her once, his form translucent now, more spirit than flesh. He sat beside her on a smooth, sun-warmed rock, the scent of wildfires and wet earth heavy in the air. "They're learning," he murmured, his voice the rustle of dry leaves. "Finding their path, just as we found ours." "And making mistakes along the way," Sarah said, a flicker of worry creasing her weathered brow. She had seen it, the arrogance in some of the younger protectors, the gleam of the Entia tech they wielded perhaps a bit too eagerly. "Always," Mark pulsed with quiet certainty. "But they'll learn. Earth, she's a harsh, but patient teacher." Sarah, aged beyond count, looked out at the land she had loved, fought for, and now simply inhabited. The ostrich, ancient now, a living chronicle of battles and alliances, stood guard at her side, its presence more comforting than any weapon. Change was coming, she knew. The flicker of ships on the horizon, the ripple of unease from distant Entia contacts. The galaxy had not forgotten the strange, guarded world. New threats would rise, new tests of Earth's resilience, and the mettle of those who dared call themselves protectors. But something within her, a deep echo of the planet's ancient pulse, held an unwavering certainty. Earth would endure. Whether those who stood in its defense learned the hard lessons of balance, of fighting without losing sight of the world they fought for, remained to be seen. She had played her part. It was time for a new generation to write their chapter in this endless story. Nadia had never known the world before the crystals, before the whispers of the ostrich guardians, before the stories of old Sarah, the human who spoke the tongue of Earth herself. Her world was one of vigilance, of hidden camps and patrols harmonizing with the watchful presence of the land. She thought she understood balance, the delicate dance between Entia tech and the old ways. They used the crystals as eyes and ears, extended their senses across continents. Yet they relied on the winds to carry warnings, on the shifting sands to misdirect their foes. But something in her, that youthful fire, longed for more. It arrived cloaked in the guise of an opportunity. An Entia trade convoy, their vast ships bearing the markings of trusted allies, offered a rare exchange, information on a new kind of weapon, a defensive shield woven from the harmonic frequencies of a distant moon. It held the promise of a security Earth had never known. Nadia was among the delegations sent to learn this secret. The Entia were gracious, eager, yet something prickled at the back of her neck. The shield's design was elegant, yes, but it thrummed with a contained power that hinted at more than mere defense. Whispers from old Sarah echoed in her ears. The protectors can become the conquerors. The exchange turned sour. A misunderstanding, a veiled threat, a sudden, chilling look in the eyes of their gentle Entia hosts. Nadia, the youngest, the least experienced, found herself not as a student, but as a hostage, a bargaining chip. Her escape wasn't daring, but desperate, a flicker through hyperspace corridors she barely understood, a crash landing not on Earth, but on a world barren and gray. She was alone, without tech, adrift in a sea of stars that held no familiar patterns. It was the land that saved her, not with lushness, but with a brutal honesty. Scorching winds, sand that shifted and sank, the skeletal remains of creatures who had succumbed to the harshness. There were tracks, though, patterns unseen by those reliant on machines. Nadia, the human shaped by a sentient Earth, learned to survive. She read the messages written in the curve of a dune, the angle of the merciless sun, the subtle, venomous scent of a flowering cactus. Hunger clawed at her, thirst drove her onwards, and with each passing day, a cold realization grew. The Entia shield, it was not just protection. It was a way to harness, to control, even to sever the connection to a living world. She staggered back to Earth's embrace, changed leaner, harder, her eyes holding the bleak reflection of the world she'd barely escaped. The warnings she carried were stark, the proof etched into her sun-scorched skin and the lingering taste of alien sands in her mouth. Nadia, the one they deemed too young, became the catalyst for a shift. The reliance on Entia tech lessened. The ostriches were viewed with newfound respect, their role as guardians bolstered. Old Sarah's whispers were taken not as myth, but as a blueprint for vigilance against the seductive lure of absolute power. The Krelt returned, as they knew they would, not in a grand, conquering fleet, but a series of probing incursions, testing the waters, their scavengers' instincts sensing change both subtle and disconcerting. Nadia was the one mark, now more spirit than man, led to the heart of their new deception. A hidden valley, seemingly barren, a scar on the landscape. Yet, within, the pulse of the land thrummed, crystals throbbed in synchronicity, and there, silhouetted against the rising moon, was the ostrich flock, now dozens strong. The Krelt landed, tentative, arrogant, expecting easy pickings. Nadia watched from her camouflaged outpost, a flicker of grim satisfaction crossing her face. They wouldn't find ruins or primitive natives easily overawed. They would find a trap laid out with ruthless, patient precision. The first wave was taken down with a speed that defied logic. The earth itself seemed to ripple against them, the ground shifting into treacherous mud pits, the very air thick with intoxicating pollen. The ostriches struck not with the blind fury of the past, but with chilling focus, targeting containment fields, disrupting communications. The Krelt fought back, their tech flaring, but here, amidst the very source of Earth's power, their weapons were erratic, unpredictable. When the second wave arrived, drawn by the distress signal, they were lured into a canyon where the crystals hummed a discordant song, a symphony of nausea and disorientation. The retreat was a scramble, not an organized withdrawal. The ostriches harried them to the edge of Earth's atmosphere, their leader, a descendant of the first guardian, sporting the scars of countless battles and a cold, near-human intelligence in its eyes. Nadia, standing amidst the wreckage of the Krelt landing craft, felt not triumph, but the familiar echo of old Sarah's words. A harsh, but patient teacher. The galaxy was vast, filled with threats old and new. Yet, Nadia knew that Earth had learned its lesson. Power was necessary, knowledge vital, but true strength came from an unwavering bond with the world itself, a chilling dance between the wisdom of the ancient and the adaptability forged through relentless conflict. She glanced towards the horizon, where a sliver of silver remained of Mark's fading form. The ostriches, bloodied but sated, preened in the strengthening sunlight. Earth pulsed beneath her feet, a hum of satisfaction and a hint of what trials were yet to come. Nadia, the protector, the survivor, the inheritor of a world both harsh and wondrous, felt a certainty settle in her bones. Earth would endure. No matter the cost, no matter the form the battle took, it would endure. And so would they? The transmission was faint, carried on frequencies most species would filter out as cosmic background noise. But the Entia collective, forever curious, forever seeking, focused on the anomaly. The message pulsed and warped, a blend of the guttural cries of Earth's guardians, the sharp click of Krelt comms intercepted from a skirmish decades distant, and something else. The translation took time, required an Entia adept with a love of long-forgotten dialects and an open mind. The message was not a plea for help, not a warning, but a statement etched into the very fabric of space-time. It was as brutal and elegant as the world it came from. Survive, adapt, protect. This is the way of Earth. There was debate within the collective. Some saw a ripe world, teeming with exploitable resources, made even more valuable by a unique defense system. Others, recalling the haunting legends of the guarded world, advocated caution, observing from afar. In the end, it was the crystal being, the oldest of its kind, who cast the deciding ripple. We have disturbed a balance, it pulsed. Earth, and those who walk upon her, were not meant for the wider galactic stage. Their path is their own. And so, a bubble of silence was drawn around Earth, not a blockade, but a distortion to the usual shipping lanes and communication streams. To those who stumbled upon it, it was an empty space, a tear in the map of the cosmos, an intriguing puzzle, but one most deemed not worthy of the risk. Within that guarded bubble, the story continued. Nadia, aged now, walked the ancient lands with a newest generation of protectors at her side. The ostriches thrived, an uneasy alliance now forged in the blood of countless battles. The crystals hummed, the land resonated, and always there was the echo of old Sarah's voice, carried by the wind and etched into the weathered faces of her descendants. There were victories, yes, skirmishes won, enemies turned away, and always there were losses. Brave guardians fell. The land itself bore the scars of battles fought on plains and beneath the waves. Factions emerged among the humans themselves, those who wished to isolate, to disappear even from the eyes of the Entia, and those who saw the value in the wider galactic community, however dangerous. But through it all pulsed the fierce, enduring heartbeat of the world they called home. Earth, the sentient planet, the anomaly, the protector and the battleground, was not a paradise, nor a conquered territory. It was a force, a way of being, a relentless teacher of harshest truths. And somewhere, far beyond that guarded bubble of space, a young Krelt scavenger captain, scrutinizing an outdated galactic map, grumbled at the blank spot marring his calculations. "Useless, empty sector," he chirped to his pilot. "Adjust the route. Plenty of other, easier targets to be found." The pilot, scarred from a hasty retreat from a world that had fought far harder than anticipated, readily obeyed. Earth, bathed in the light of its unique sun, remained unbothered, its secrets and its guardians concealed for a little while longer. The fight went on, as it always would, But for now, in this flicker of cosmic time, a measure of peace remained for this strange and wondrous world.